Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you so much for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. Guys, you know we're always fired up on this show, but today, episode number 59, guys, we got a legend in the house right here. This is a man that is helping 10 million people achieve financial freedom. This is a man that's been seen on CNBC, Market Watch, Business Insider, and a frequent on the local news. This is a man that became a millionaire in his 30s without inheritance, without winning the lottery, or without any luck. And he can teach you how to do the same. This is my brother and a cool man. I'm pumped to introduce. He's got the home gym in the background. What's going on, Steve? How you doing today, man?
My gosh, Tyler, that was like the best intro I've ever had on a podcast. I am doing great. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I got the gym behind me. It's got the squat rack, got the cable machine, some dumbbells, and some weight plates. So yeah, I'm all set up here.
Dude, you're looking good, brother. It's good to see you. I know you've had a weight loss journey. There's so much to get into with you, man. You're a guy that I love following on Twitter. I love seeing all the fire that you always put out, man. And I would assume probably you just have a massive social media following and a presence. So I'm sure most people have heard of you that are follow me, but could you give people maybe just a 1 or 2 minute introduction, kind of who you are, what you're about?
Yeah, no problem. So I started my career in 2005 in IT, and after about the 2 week mark, I'd say 2 weeks after like getting a 9 to 5 and like going through the process of living like an adult, quote unquote adult, I was like, this is it. This is what I have to look forward to for the rest of my life. This sucks. There's no way I can possibly do this until I'm 65. Not going to happen. So I didn't have all the pieces into place then. I mean, I was young. I was 24-ish years old, but I knew that I could not do that for the rest of my life. When I was about 32, 33 years old, I met my wife. She also worked in IT. So two IT salaries coming together, by the end of our careers, we were pulling in over 200 G's. And this was back in the early, I don't know, maybe 2012, 2013. So that was respectable money. It's respectable money now, but it was especially, well, I mean, that was a damn good salary back then. So we had a choice to make. We could either live like rock stars with the vacation home and the nice dinners and things like that, or we could just save as much as we can, retire or at least quit our 9 to 5 jobs and pursue a life that we actually want to pursue, because life is short. You might as well do that when you can, while you're young, while you're still active and healthy. And we are, and that's ultimately what we did. And now I get up every day whenever I want and do pretty much whenever I want for as long as I want, because I control my time. And that is just a level of freedom that is just really, really hard to describe.
Man, yeah, dude, I'm getting goosebumps as you talk about it, because I think that's the ultimate wealth, right? Like that you're really rich if you get to dictate. If they can't, I think Naval had a great quote that said, if they can tell you when to be there, what to wear, and when you can go home, you're not rich. I don't care
That's
how much
right.
you have in the bank, And so you hit that light bulb moment early, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, freedom, there's so many different, I guess, aspects to freedom. Money is one. Yes, that's true, because with money you could buy more freedom, and that's essentially what I did. But money in and of itself is not everything. In fact, a high salary, I know for a lot of people it's tougher. This is going to sound strange, but for a lot of people, it's tougher to change your life when you are a high income earner than when you are a low income earner. And the reason for that is, when you're a high income earner, you have so many resources that you have to pick and choose. You have to be very, very, I guess, discriminatory about what you spend your money on. And when there's so much money to spend and you work a hard, stressful job, you might think that you deserve some of the nicer things in life. I mean, quite frankly, that is not easy. So when people hear my salary, 220 G's by the end of our careers, yes, that's a lot of money. And yes, that also makes it way easier to achieve financial freedom. But guess what? It's not nearly as easy as you would assume it is.
So let me ask you this, Steve, because you obviously had this light bulb moment. Hey, we can live on a lot less and save, and money buys time. Where did that come from? Or was it just out of necessity of, I ain't driving to this job for the next 40 years? And did you start to read? Did you start to learn, network? What were your next steps, I guess, when you started to kind of shift the way you thought about money and the way that you thought about time?
I followed a blog called Mr Money Mustache, and if you're in the financial independence community, you've probably heard of that blog. And he's an IT guy; he's a software developer, so his story really meshed well with mine. And so I really started to read what he wrote and try to match up my life to his, and it was so close, so similar. And I was like, if this guy could do it, I can do it, because combined with my wife's salary, we were making more than he was. So it's like, there's no way that this can't happen. We just have to buckle down and freaking do it. And that's ultimately what we did right after getting married. Like every single day after dinner, we would walk our dogs in the neighborhood and we would talk about what our future lives were going to be like, what we wanted to do. And doing that constant, that repetitive reinforcement about what you want your future life to look like, that is ultimately the key in putting these pieces into place and keeping yourself consistent. Because when you never talk about it, and guess what? Most people don't talk about it with their spouse. But the more you do talk about it, then the more you get on the same page about these things, and you can agree way more often about the things you do, the things you spend your money on. And as that process starts to snowball, then you start to make the right decisions. You start to save more, you start to invest more, you start to spend less, and voila, your net worth just balloons.
Man, that's super inspiring too, because I think actually when I look back at my own journey, Steve, I had similar. I played professional poker for a decade. I really liked the freedom that
Oh,
gave
nice.
me. But then, we had a kid. We moved back home. There's no casinos within hours. Online poker became illegal, and so I went back to college, took a job at a bank, rose up pretty high, started running the whole bank. But I remember the day I came home and told my wife, I am not doing this until I'm 65. Like, we have to have some sort of exit plan. And it was awesome, man, because before that, I think we just did what society told you. You got paid, you spent your money on stuff, and then you waited to get paid again, and you spent your money on stuff. And that's how I was kind of programmed. But I remember when I set my wife down, she's always been way more of a saver than me. And we started talking exactly what you're talking about. What do we want our future to look like? When we have more kids, I want to be home for it. I don't want to be missing this stuff, And so
Exactly.
we got a mission together and started talking about that together. And that was such a powerful thing. I think it even drew us closer as a unit.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the more you talk, the more you understand each other. I mean, it seems so simple, right? But opening line of communication. I don't want this to get too frou-frou, but I mean, communicating with your spouse, my gosh, I mean, you married this person. So what better thing there's nothing that you can do that will strengthen your relationship quite like just talking. It's so simple, it's so easy, it's free. And I mean, the benefits are just amazing, really amazing.
So what were some of the big things that you switched around then? Like were you a big spender before and then all of a sudden
Oh yeah.
you get into investing, or what were some of the biggest changes, I guess, you guys made from those conversations that you were able to apply?
Well, the first thing I did was I sold my supercharged Corvette, which I drove for many years. It was a money pit, my friend, but man, it was so much fun. It was the loudest, fastest car in the city. I also rode a Yamaha R1 sport bike, which is like the sport bike. If you want to kill yourself early, that's also why my insurance rates were so high. That's the bike you want to kill yourself on. Got up to 180 miles per hour one night.
Dude, on a motorcycle?
On a motorcycle.
Bro, that is insane, man. That's
It was
wild.
about 10 o'clock at night. Nobody was on, like, deserted highway. Boom, heading down to Mexico at 180 miles an hour. I only got up there. I only got to 180 for like 1 or 2 seconds or something. Then I backed off. But I just wanted to experience that miles per hour needle pegged at the very top. Anyway, I'm lucky to be alive today. But yeah, I was a huge spender. Insurance alone for that bike was $240 a month or something, because people do that kind of stupid stuff on a bike and they kill themselves and they wreck all the time. So yeah, lots of money out the door to have fun, because quite frankly, I did not like my job and I wanted some kind of escape from it. My wife was very different. She wasn't an insane saver, but she definitely saved way more money than I did. So it helped with this this process of achieving financial independence with at least one of the two spouses being a saver. If you're both spenders, that's going to be, it's going to be a little bit tougher for both of you to get on the same page. But when one of you is more of a saver, that makes it really did make it much, much easier. And it really wasn't a hardship for her at all. It was more of a hardship for me, especially the restaurants. Dude, there was one point in my life, and I kid you not, I would go out to eat for lunch and dinner every single day.
Oh man.
I put on 70 pounds and I dropped probably 10 or 15K from my net worth going out to eat with my roommate. We had the cleanest stove in the entire apartment complex because we never freaking used it. I'll leave it at that because I'm probably making myself look like
that's pretty well. I think we all make those kind of mistakes early on, though. I know, dude. I mean, looking back, this is wild. But as a professional poker player and living in Vegas for a while, in my early 20s, on a very safe bet, I would say I spent 200 to 250K on alcohol and nightclubs and partying for in that 5 or 6 year span, and I bet it would be closer to 300 if I really, But you learn from that stuff, and then you realize, dude, I can go to Dollar Beer Night in my flip flops and have just as much fun as the Oomsa place that's exactly making me spend $600 a bottle, right? So you kind of, that's even a bigger point, and I wrote this down a minute ago. I wanted to get into it with you is, we grow up, man, and Steve, by the time we're 18 or 20 or what, we've probably seen 100,000 commercials programming us ways to think, well, the guy with the Lexus is real, the guy with the Corvette's really happy, that's vacation home, and everybody kind of gets locked into this corporate job. And, if you're out there and you love your corporate job, that's awesome. That's great. Keep doing it. But let's be honest, I would say 9 out of 10 people that I talk to hate their job, man. If they could do something else, they definitely would. But that lifestyle creep keeps them from doing it because they do get addicted to the buying of the stuff and all that. So how did you unlearn that, reprogram your mind? How do you teach other people to do that?
Yeah. So for me, one of the benefits, it seems strange to say this, but one of the benefits is I hated my job enough. Well, hate might be a strong word. I derived no satisfaction, I'll say it that way, from my job. I appreciated what it was doing for me, like providing an income, but I really encourage people to look at least 10 years down the road. And I have a very simple question for them. Do you see yourself doing the exact same thing? And most people are going to say no. And that's good. You shouldn't want to be doing the same thing 10 years from now, because that means you're not progressing. You're not trying new things and improving your life. So if you want it bad enough, and this is something that I obviously cannot tell people to do or help them get here necessarily. You have to want to build wealth and achieve financial freedom bad enough to start making better decisions with your money. And once that happens, man, everything starts to fall into place. You start to track your expenses so you know where you can cut back. Most people have no idea what they're spending on food and restaurants and clothes and all that crap because they just spend it on a credit card, they pay their bill, and that's it, right? They don't track, they don't categorize, nothing. So that's very often the first step. It's a pain in the butt, but that is the first step. Then saving an emergency fund and then investing at least 20%, not 10%, 20% of your income. And boy, those changes add up super, super quickly. But man, the first step, and that is something that I cannot force you to do, is you have to want it. And if you do, everything gets so much easier after that.
And I think you can apply that to almost anything, right? Like fitness,
exactly,
weight, whatever it is. Hey, man, I can tell you all the right things to do. You can tell somebody all the right things to do, but until you have that deep in you, I think I was fortunate like you too, man, because there was aspects of my job maybe I didn't hate, but I would just sit there and watch the clock tick my life away essentially, and be like, dude, I feel like, selling credit cards and home equity lines of credit, not there's anything wrong with it. I'm just not passionate about it. I want to help people in a better way or a different kind of way, right? I felt this tug to go do that. And so I had this deep desire to escape that where, man, I was willing to do anything, right? Like just live so far below our means. And I found out our monthly nut, what it was. And then I just basically would say, hey, every time I can save about $4,200, that's 1 month less I got to work, right? And if I get enough of those invested and saved, then I don't need to work anymore, right? And so you kind of start, and then you get the passive income coming in and all those things. And so it's, it's powerful.
Yeah, I mean, if you could translate the money you're spending to extra years that you have to work, that helps a lot of people as well. Is that BMW worth another 10 years in your career? If it is, great, fine, do it. Whatever, have a blast. But if you want to quit, or if you want to achieve FI, then that BMW, or that whatever it is, that high expense season tickets, whatever, that may not be worth it. So if you can equate that, if you can equate spending to additional years doing something that you don't want to be doing, I think that for a lot of people helps frame the question in a way that really hits home hard.
That hits me home hard when you say, it's, I think so much of being successful and a successful adult is asking yourself those right questions and being honest with yourself. And when you really ask yourself that, hey, that car's 60 grand, right? 70 grand. But let's look at the opposite. Look, if you invest that 70 grand and instead buy a $10,000, $12,000 car, now you've put 56 in the market. When that 56 is in the market for 20 years, it's actually worth 200, right? And so really now you're saying, I really want to work three more years to drive that Benz over a Honda Accord. Is it worth it? And you know what you said, I agree with that. For some people, yeah, they're like, heck yeah, it is, man. I want a BMW. I want that car. Great. That's awesome. If you're true to yourself, then do it. But I think where most people get into the problem is they just do it because everybody else is doing it, man. They just do it because that's what society kind of has normalized. And nobody thinks like, the average lifespan's only what for a guy? It's like 78, and you're supposed to work till you're 65 and then not be in great health. And then that's it. Like that, there has to be more than that, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we weren't made to work till we're 65 and hope we have another 10 years of quality life left. That sounds absolutely horrific to me.
Yeah, insane. It literally, if you're making a deal with somebody and you tell them that, they'll be like, no, I'm not signing up for that. But everybody does, it's just
exactly.
Kind of crazy.
I mean, the government does not control your retirement. You do. You have to keep telling yourself that. And once you understand that, then you start to take way more control over every aspect of your life, to include how much you're saving and include how much you're investing and spending, so you can retire on your schedule, not on the government schedule.
Man, I love that. And I love that taking ownership piece. And there's one thing about you that I absolutely love, brother, and that's in all your tweets. You're really big on ownership. And one thing you mentioned earlier, even about the first guy you found in the blog, and I think there's this tendency, maybe even somebody listening, well, it's nice for Steve, it must be nice. Well, you get some of these people, right? But instead of what you said is, oh man, it must be nice for this guy to be retiring early. You said, hey, instead of be jealous or the must be nice guy, what can I learn from this guy? What can I apply to my own life? And that's why I always challenge people out there. Somebody looking at a guy like you who now just, dude, you don't have to wake up at any certain time. You're free to do whatever you want literally for the rest of your life. That's amazing. You're free. So instead of people saying, oh, it must be nice, Steve, what can people practically learn from you? I would admire a guy like you. And what can people learn? You're putting stuff out here for free every day. You're on this podcast. You got your newsletter. You got all these ways you're helping other people get there. So why do you think there's this natural tendency for some people to still be the must be nice guy?
Yeah, I think spending money is a very personal decision. And when you see somebody doing something that, better than you, or more successful than you, or richer than you, I think it's very natural. It's like human nature to want to come up with excuses about why you are not at that level as well. Well, this guy had this advantage. Well, she had that advantage. Or he's a white male. So it's, I've heard that a lot. And it's going to be easier for some people than others. Life is not fair. There's absolutely no question about that. But if you keep making excuses, nobody in the history of the world has gotten successful by blaming others or by not taking responsibility for their actions. For the possible exception of politicians, but that's another discussion.
It's pretty much all they do, right? I don't follow a lot of this stuff. It seems to be their playbook, right?
Exactly. That is absolutely
their just come in and you blame the last guy for all the problems, and then they blame the last one. That's pretty much all they do.
Precisely. Yeah. So if you can somehow figure out how to remove like the personal aspect of, oh, this guy's better than me, they must have had an advantage, or they must have had an inheritance, or they must have won the lottery, or somebody must have helped them do this or that or whatever. That's so natural with with a segment of the population. And quite frankly, that is a devastating mindset, because the more you believe that, the less you're going to be working on yourself to get to that point. So really understand, like, rich people are some of the best teachers in the world. Listen to what they say, read what they write, watch their actions, which I actually think is more important than just, following what they say. Look at what they're actually doing, where they're investing their money, the things they do with their time. Like most millionaires, for instance, work out at least 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week. How many in America? How many in the world, in at least industrialized countries of the world, work out at least 4 times a week? What percentage? Maybe
Gotta be
10%.
low, man. Well, we're creeping up
Yeah.
on 2/3 obesity and overweight in our country, so it's not much.
Exactly. So if you really watch what successful people do and then try to apply that in some way to your life, to start doing these things, you don't have to like completely change your life overnight, but these little things that you can start to add in, these healthy millionaire habits that you can add into your life, all of those things are going to add up to make you richer and more successful. No doubt about it.
Man, it's such a powerful point, and one that even I'll admit, like, I meet a lot of people off Twitter because I live in Vegas. So, I've probably met hundreds of people off Twitter, and even today, man, I'll have a natural tendency where I'll meet a young cat who's 23 and I'll lift with them, right? And this dude, I'm thinking of Paul. He's got muscles coming out of muscles, and my first thought is like, well, man, he doesn't have kids. That's why he's stronger than me, or man, he's just younger. Maybe he's got better genes. But instead of, if I can just shift that mindset, which I do, to say, dude, Paul's a beast. What can I learn from this workout? I always come out of that better, right? And I think we always have that choice to how we view people. And I think there's a segment of society, and it's almost pushed by politics, if you really want to get into it, and mainstream narratives of, it's not your fault, blame this other person, right? And that just leads to nowhere. I mean, the best book I ever read, I said, saved my marriage, was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And that's when I really realized, you know what, even if it's not my fault, it's going to be my fault. I'm going to take ownership of where every penny goes, where my mindset goes, where my health goes, and everything. And I think anybody listening to this out there can have a massive takeaway from that, of exactly what you just said.
Yeah, that's one of the things that my dad, a lesson that was a tough lesson to learn, but my dad really instilled into me this lesson when I was younger, that everything that goes wrong is your fault. But that's also true when things go right. It's also your fault. There's almost always something that you could have done differently to change the outcome. That's such a powerful thing to understand. And once you realize that, you start to think about things differently, and you start to take responsibility for everything that's going on in your life, whether it's good or whether it's bad. No doubt about it.
That's so true, man. I think that's such a powerful point and a good thing to think on right there. I think that's huge. And another thing I wanted to kind of touch on here, I want to get to some questions we had from some of the Twitter viewers, but
Sure.
when you started to get into this process, right, of selling the motorcycle, selling a nice car, living below your means, what did some of your colleagues say? What did some, getting healthy, not eating out? Sounds like you're eating out 21 times a week. Now you're switching that around. Were people kind of calling you crazy, or what are you thinking? Or, what was that like?
Luckily, it wasn't that big of a deal. A lot of my coworkers and friends would not go down this same path. It wasn't for them, but thankfully they were, I guess, objective enough to say, okay, if that works for you, that's great. But I know I'm certainly not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And most of my coworkers, quite frankly, I didn't talk about this stuff with them. We didn't really have that kind of dialogue. So they had no idea. In fact, for the last year of my career, we had sold my house. We had sold my wife's house. We were living out of a freaking Airstream trailer full time.
And you were a millionaire at this point?
870,000. So close.
Really
so
close,
very,
yeah.
very close. We were living in a campground out of a trailer for my last working year. Luckily, I got to work from home. So I just sat up in the kitchen / nook / family room / almost a bathroom. And that's pretty much, where I did my work. That's where I did my thing, but nobody had any idea. So I think depending on who your friends are, depending on who your coworkers are, it might not be a productive line of conversation to even bring this up to them. But luckily for me, I had a group of people around me that didn't necessarily follow my path, but also didn't, incessantly criticize me for following that path. So that was nice.
And how old were you, Steve, when you told your boss, and what was that like that day that you said, hey, I no longer need this job?
Yeah, I think I was 33, I want to say. And
so amazing.
I gave him 6 months notice.
That's cool.
And a lot of people out there might be saying, holy shit. I mean, my boss would fire me in 2 weeks. But I worked for a nice enough guy that he was like, Steve, I hate to see you go, but if I was in your position, I'd be doing the exact same thing. It's like,
that's cool.
That's why I gave you 6 months, because you're a good guy. I like working with you, and I want to give you as much notice as I possibly could.
Yeah.
So again, luckily that went off without a hitch, but man, I was prepared. If I got pushback, I had these talking points laid out, and I wasn't going to be combative by any means, but I really wanted to have my argument, I guess, laid out in case he started to push back any. But luckily that didn't happen. It was no sweat.
That's awesome, man. What did your folks say and some of your other friends at 33 when you're just like, hey, yeah, I don't need a job anymore. I'm retired,
My dad retired at 49. So
awesome.
he was born to a pastor, and they made very little money, like not quite poverty, but pretty darn close to it. There's 3 kids. He was one of them. And he joined the military, got 2 master's degrees, worked his way up from the ground to millionaire status in the late 2000s. So I got to witness that whole process about what can happen regardless of where you start. Yes, some people start on third base. Some people start on first base. We all get that. I understand. I did not struggle nearly as much as my dad did. But luckily for me, I got to experience or at least witness what a lot of hard work can do. So he was so on board. He was like, dude, retire sooner if you can. And I was more risk tolerant, and I still am. My wife was more risk averse. So I would have retired. Yeah, I would have retired like years before. But my wife was a little bit more risk averse, so we worked a little bit longer. But I mean, 35, dude, there's nothing to complain about that.
Yeah, that's pretty dope,
good
man.
grief.
Yeah, you got a lot of great years living, man. I think that's such an awesome point that you bring up too, and one that I like to highlight a lot is that watching your dad just go after it day in and day out. He almost probably didn't even need to tell you those lessons. You just got to witness it. And I think if any dads out there listen to that, man, I think back to a big turning point in my childhood was my dad. I was about 10 years old, and my dad was training for a race, and I rode a bike out. He ran 3 or 4 miles. He threw me up on his shoulders and did hill sprints till he was puking. And he didn't talk about it. He's just like, I'm training. My dad was 40 at the time or whatever, But I remember just seeing my dad like always pushing himself physically. He was always reading. He was always bettering himself. That just inspired me to want to do the same and kind of carry that on. It sounds like you had that kind of same legacy with your father, which shows how critical dads and parents are,
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the biggest benefit that I've had in my life. It's not the money or really anything else. It was having loving, quote unquote, successful parents who taught me the right lessons from the very beginning. And I know that not everybody has that same quote unquote privilege. And that's quite frankly why I spend so much time on social media and just talking about these things, because for the people who didn't have that kind of upbringing, I am trying the best I can to impart what I learned in my childhood over to them, regardless of how old they are. A lot of people get it. They really do. I also have a lot of haters, but I believe that if you don't have haters, you're not doing it right.
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, I feed, and this might not be the healthiest thing in the world, I don't know, but I feed on the hate. And it's because I know that there's still a lot of work to do. Haters keep me motivated to keep going, which is probably the opposite effect of as what they want. But haters motivate me to keep going because I know there's people out there who actually believe that stuff. And I want to reach them as much as I want to reach the people who are actually accepting of what I'm telling them.
Man, I think that's powerful. I always say like 99% of days I just ignore the haters. I'm the most positive guy on Twitter, but 1% they do
You
make
are
fantastic fuel. They really do, man.
Yeah.
Like just pull up a seat, man. I ain't going anywhere. So
yeah,
just
exactly.
keep watching the ride, then you do you. But I think let's get to that topic a little bit on social media. And dude, you've had a massive rise. You got hundreds of thousands of followers now. You're tweeting out fire every day. You're really helping a lot of people every day. I feel like what's that been like to build this community and be able to impact so many people?
It's been amazing. If you told me 3 years from now that I'd have 160,000 followers on Twitter, I never would have believed you. In fact, I had another social media account with a blog that I have since sold, but it took me 5 years to get to 13,000 followers. And now it's taken me 2.5 years to get to 160. And the roller coaster, actually, it's not even a roller coaster, just a roller coaster up. I haven't really experienced the thrill of that downward trend yet, and I hope I never do. But I mean, the people that I'm able to meet and affect and influence, I mean, that's really what gets me up in the morning and gets me to continue to log on to Twitter and see what's going on, because I know that I have an audience, and an audience is such a powerful thing if you want to make an impact. And I do. That's why I'm doing this. Otherwise, quite frankly, there's no point of like spending so much time on social media if you're just going to give people crap. A lot of people do that, but for me, that's not worth it. I want to build as big of an audience, and I don't hesitate to admit this. I don't think it's vain to want more followers. I want as big of a following, as many people following me as I can, so I could influence and I could positively affect as many people as possible.
I think that's amazing. I think anybody who really is out there putting out content would be lying if they said that wasn't the case, right? I've heard people say, you know what, if I have 10 followers or 1,000 or 1,000,000, it's all the same.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Right. I mean, we all want to impact. I think we all feel called to do it. If you're out there grinding, and look, man, for anybody who thinks it's easy to get 160,000 followers, dude, it takes commitment, discipline, habits, consistency, all these things. Like, you got to be able to show up every day when you don't feel like it. You got to be able to write when you don't feel like it. You got to be able to, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? But when you feel called and inspired, I think to have this message to put out, that's amazing. And then big point I want to highlight too is people need to be following you, and people need to be coming into this community. Obviously, we're going to link everything Steve does below, but man, there's people every day on social media, and I didn't know this until 3 years ago, that just want to help you. That's literally, they're literally logging on every day to help you, to inspire you, to help you become the best version of yourself. I was too busy arguing about Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump before that, and it's like, you really have to be mindful and curate your feed to find these people, and then unfollow and block and mute the rest of the crap. And dude, you will not believe what that does to your input and your minds. I mean, dude, I knew nothing about personal finance until I got really into Twitter and found guys like you. And lo and behold, man, my net worth is now 7-figure. I've just learned so much from picking up what you guys do. Again, I learn and admire and apply what I can. And it's unbelievable, the vast amount of knowledge, whether that's health, relationships, fitness, faith, all these things have just soared up from me since I got intentional about who I follow.
Yeah. And I think Twitter is head and shoulders more beneficial, more valuable than any other social media network. Instagram might be a close second, but I mean, there's just no comparison with Facebook and TikTok, whatever that is. I mean, there's so much more going on with Twitter, that you get to meet so many more people and converse with them in a more personal way. I mean, I'm doing this podcast with you because of Twitter. There's amazing, really no comparison in terms of what you can learn and the influence that you could have on the Twitter platform. No question about it.
Definitely agree, man. I do think with Elon coming in, I've seen some of your thoughts on that. We might be losing followers. I'm okay with that, because there are going to be a lot of bots. A bot follows you. Who cares? Like, we want people, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
What are your thoughts on the Elon takeover, man? All that coming up. Let's hit that hot topic, man. Try not to get myself off YouTube, but we'll see.
I know. I love it. A lot of people don't like that I love it, but
I love it.
There was something seriously wrong with the leadership of previous Twitter, where people would just get literally canceled for no reason. A friend of mine got suspended for like 30 days for making a joke, literally making a joke. It
Or
was
everyone
maybe
knew
a
it was a
poor
joke, right?
Exactly.
Like
It was
everyone
maybe a
knows, it's like,
poorly timed joke, but
right,
there was no obscenities. It wasn't race-based. It was
right.
just a freaking joke.
Yeah.
And he got suspended because of it. So this, I think there was no transparency before. And I mean, Elon Musk, whether you like him or not, just read his profile. Everything is out there. He
Yeah.
is such an open book, especially with his Twitter verification process that seems to be ruffling a lot of feathers. As a verified person myself on Twitter, I like what's going on here because it levels the playing field. It's no longer this kings versus pawns kind of thing, where if you're fortunate enough to get past the Twitter gods and be verified, then you get the little check mark. But if you're not, there's nothing you can do about it. But
Yeah,
that is
I never
all
understood the
changing now.
verification, why that was a thing, man. Like I tried to get verified 4 or 5 times and never could. I've got almost 90,000 followers on there. I'm a real person. I've met hundreds of people off there. I can link
I
them
know.
things that shows I'm a real person. And when I've played on 20 online poker sites, it's just a matter of sending in a government issued ID and a bill in your name, and they verify you, you can cash out. Why don't we just make it that easy? I never understood that. So I
The
think that's a really
real
good.
problem, yep, the real problem with how verification worked before is Twitter treated it as a like a notoriety kind of thing where you had to be, some kind of influential person that everybody's talking about or a journalist. And that's ultimately how I got verified. I've written for CNBC and Business Insider and all that. So that's how I got verified. But that's certainly not the way it should be. If you're not a bot, if you actually participate on Twitter and you log on almost every day, you write good stuff, you're a human, then
Right.
that to me, that is verification. So
Yeah.
I am liking this new direction
Yeah,
that
I'm
that
with
we're
you. I'm
going
with you
in.
too, man. I don't really understand why it's ruffling feathers outside. I don't think censorship has ever been a good thing for anybody. And of course, man, I take some of the most vile hate you could ever imagine with a son that doesn't look like me, another son that doesn't look like me, the adoption and things like that. But
Yep.
I have a choice to just block those people, right? And move on and still control my timeline. And I don't know, man, when you're gonna start censoring just what you don't like and you're gonna have a board of people, we all have different thoughts on what we would allow or not. We all have these little political biases, whether we want to admit them or not. And so who's checking the fact checkers is my thing. At some point, man, these people are going to decide, well, I want this to stay. I don't want this to stay. And you run into a lot of problems there.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that a lot of the pushback from the verified accounts on Twitter, they don't want it to be an open system. They want to maintain the fact that they're verified and you are not. They'll never admit that, of course,
Yeah.
but absolutely, I am convinced that 90% of those who are complaining so much about it, that is the reason, which
Yeah,
is
I
really
think that
sad.
goes back to almost the same thing of these same people who are going to tell you not to own a gun. Their personal security guards own guns. They're going to tell you not to. Yeah, I mean, it's just all kind of like flows in the same state for me. What's good for me isn't good for you. They're going to tell you have to wear the mask, and your kids do. But we're going to see them out to dinner with their buddies. We're going to see them on private planes with their buddies not wearing masks. It's just kind of what's good for me. I'll tell you what to do.
Exactly.
But I want to stay above here, and you stay down there, kind of thing. So I'm glad to see the direction it's going, man.
Yep, it's now leveling the playing field, so I am completely on board with it.
Yeah, I like it, man. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, dude, let's get to some Twitter questions here, man. I got a few of them. This
Yep, hit
one
me.
comes from my boy here, Art of Purpose. He is a beast on Twitter as well. We love this guy. He said, ask him how he built his home gym. Maybe you can tell us a little about your weight loss journey, when that happened, a little bit into it, and your home gym, man, which looks cool behind you.
Yeah, man. I alluded to it before. I was 70 pounds overweight because I went out to eat so much. And this was back when I lived in Virginia with a roommate, and we both went out to eat. So I was just around an environment that just thrived on restaurants, I guess. I liked it. My roommate liked it, so we did it. I moved from Virginia out to Arizona, which is where I am now. So I'm no longer living with that same roommate, and everything just changed. I was like, I don't feel good. I don't believe that I look good. I think that I can do better. And just over the course of about 2 years, I I dove through YouTube channels, just learning about fitness, learning about how to do exercises. I would look at, I would watch these professional bodybuilders work out. I would look at their form. I would learn as much as I could. Then I would go to the gym and I would try it, and I would, change things here and there. But over time, just learning as much as I could and trying as much as I could and cooking at home more, boy, the weight just literally poured off of me. And the more weight you lose, the more weight you want to lose. So it was like this snowball effect, and it just continued to build and build and build from there. It's such fitness has become a huge part of my life now, to the point where we spent $15,000 on the gym that you see behind me. This is a tough shed. This is a tough shed, a 200 square foot tough shed that we bought, put it on our property. We have 7 acres of land here in Arizona. And then we kind of outfitted the inside. You can see the roof with that, kind of wood stuff and the paneling around. Bunch of mirrors on this side, and it got the squat rack and the cable machine and the dumbbells and all that. It is something that literally I cannot live without the ability to resistance train. It's become such an crucial part of my life that when I don't work out for like 2 or 3 days, I really feel different, and not in a good way.
I feel you on that, man. 100%. You seem to be a man too that has this long-term vision. When I hear you say, yeah, over the last 2 years, and I think that's where people get stuck, whether it be in investing, whether it be in fitness. I've even had a client say, well, I only lost 8 pounds this month. And I'm like, bro, you lost 8 pounds. You're only trying to get to 60.
I take that all day long.
Yeah, we just that's 2 pounds a week, man. So in 30 weeks, you're at your ideal weight for the rest of your life, but I think everybody wants it right now. Well, I saved all month and I only got 1,100 saved. Keep doing that for 10 years and invest it and see where you're at. You got to have a long-term vision. It seems like you've really mastered that.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't put on 8 pounds in a month, and you're probably not going to take off 8 pounds in a month. It's all a process. But when you start to enjoy the process, and this is easier said than done for some people, then it's not just about the result. I mean, yes, the result's important, but when you enjoy going through the process of getting to that end goal, which absolutely is what I am at now, it makes it almost enjoyable. Like going to the gym. Now I don't have to go to the gym because I have one on site, but back when I had a gym membership, going to the gym was something that I looked forward to. It was one of the most enjoyable parts of my day. Yeah. And not a lot of people get to say that, but it certainly was for me.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats on the home gym. Do we come out to Arizona at least once or twice a year? I'm going to hit you up next time we do and see if I can get a workout with you in that home gym, man, if you'll have me.
Totally. Absolutely, dude.
I would love that.
You're always welcome down. Always welcome.
I would love that. All right, we got another question. This one is from my man, Nino Digital Cafe. He says, hey, Steve, who along the way helped to get you where you are now? Who would you give some credit to?
Really 2 people, my dad first and foremost, and Mr. Money Mustache. Those are the 2 most influential people in my life that helped get me to where I am today. My dad obviously built the foundation for where I am, and Mr. Money Mustache helped me actually put the pieces into place because his story so closely matched mine that I tried to mesh my lifestyle and match his as closely as I could. He gave me a good foundation, a roadmap almost, to financial independence. So those 2 people for sure.
That's awesome, man. Super cool. I love that. Well, brother, I appreciate you coming on so much and sharing a lot of your journey and wisdom. If people want to find you, I know they got the newsletter. Do you do any coaching or do you offer any services on top of that as well?
I have a course called FI Accelerator. That's where I more or less distilled everything I know about going from working a full-time job to throwing away your alarm clock and everything in between, putting all those pieces into place. And part of that is an email coaching service. But for some people, and this is a very select few, I do offer one-on-one coaching services. I don't publicly advertise that, but it is there. If you are interested enough, hit me up through email or on Twitter, and I will let you know about the details.
We'll let you know if you can get into that exclusive club, boys and girls. I like that. You got to be selective, man. I actually like to do a screening call with people that come on my retreats or people that come on my stuff. Just because, man, I only want to work. That's part of being free you only want to work with people you want to work with. I think that's an amazing thing, you know?
That's right, man. If you don't want it bad enough, then, it's not going to work for me and it's not going to work for you. And quite frankly, I don't want to take your money.
That's
If
right.
you don't want it bad enough, save your money.
That's
I
right.
only want to work with people who want it bad enough to make changes. And I will take money from them because they will make way more money than they paid me to improve their lives. So that makes me feel good about what I'm doing. And I know they're going to feel good about what they're doing.
I love that, man. That's a really cool mindset that you have on that too, man. Well, I end every single podcast I call rapid fire questions, where I just fire off 5 quick questions for you. Give me the first thing on the top of your mind. You cool with that, Steve?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, brother, here we go. Number 1, what's the most impactful or best book you've ever read?
That would be The Millionaire Next Door by the late Dr. Thomas Stanley.
Dude, you know what? A couple of the things you said on this podcast, my mind went right to that book, where it's not like a big secret. It's just doing a lot of these little things right, like that. It makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
It's a great book.
And that millionaires don't, necessarily have the big house on the hill. You're walking around, you go to the freaking grocery store. There's millionaires in that grocery store and you have no idea they're millionaires. That's
right.
The magic of this.
Possessions fool people, man, all the time. It's like, yeah, you look at that dude driving that, my brother-in-law is big into that. He owns like 20 rental properties and they do really, really well. And his son sometimes will say, like, why do we drive an old truck? Like, I know we have a lot of money. Why don't we live in a bigger mansion? And his dad will always tell him, like, buddy, some of these people that you see driving that Ferrari are one missed paycheck away from losing everything they have, like
absolutely.
That's
cool. There's a difference between high income and high net worth.
So true.
There
man.
It is.
I'll say this. I had a client when I managed my last bank. He made $86,000 a month after taxes, got direct deposit into his account. He was 56 years old. He's some kind of specialized surgeon, and he had a negative net worth at 56. He had a 30-year-old wife who spent at least 2-3K a day on stuff.
Oh, you hate to see it.
Yeah, we tried to pull him in so many times and have talks with them. Like, dude, you have a potential here to literally, rein it in. You just couldn't do it, man. It was crazy.
Man, that's sad. That is really sad.
I need to work with you, man. Maybe I'll try and get him to follow you on Twitter if I ever see him again.
There you go.
You're big into habits and daily routines. I see you talk about this and tweet about it a lot. What do you think is the most important daily habit or daily routine that you do each day?
For me, it's my fitness workout by far. Not only does it make me happier and healthier, but it makes me more energetic, more confident. And all of that translates into other areas of life, whether it's friendships or relationships or career or business. It all stems from that workout I do every day because it starts my day off well. It gets me ready to go. And everything is just different. It hits different after I know that I've put in one heck of a workout. And that includes this morning. I'm happy and healthy and jovial right now, right freaking now, because I hit those weights right behind me earlier today.
I love that, man. Movement's medicine. And I think you alluded to it even too. And you said, if you look at the high majority of high net worth people, Warren Buffett takes a walk every day. This guy's always says it. He takes a 2-hour walk every day. It's like a lot of these high achievers, man. It's not a waste of time to take care of your health, man. You're really not healthy if you're not wealthy if you're not healthy, I think too,
I work out twice a day. One is the weights behind me. 2 is just a walk in the sun. It's free, it's easy, and it takes some time, yes, but it absolutely will change your life.
100%. And now I know why you tweet so much fire. All my good tweets come when I'm out for walks, man.
Bingo.
I think so good when I'm out for a walk, man.
You might be surprised at how many of my tweets come from a walk as well.
I believe that, man.
That's great.
This one I'm pretty interested in, man. You do have some kind of people, you get some hate, you have some people. What would you say is one of the most controversial things that maybe you don't think is controversial, but that some people come at you about?
That's a good question. I mean, people, man, yeah, you're right. I get so much hate, but
because some people just like to project their own stuff onto you, right? You see this.
Yeah. I think the most common is he doesn't have kids. So therefore everything is easier. He doesn't have kids. Everything is easier. And I mean, there is some truth to that. Yes, kids are expensive. My wife and I chose not to have kids. We made that rational choice. I understand not a lot of people make that choice. Most people have kids, and that's perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I would say, yes, we retired in our 30s in part because we did not have kids. However, I know several people who did retire in their 30s with kids. And just because you have kids doesn't mean that you can't achieve financial independence and retire early in life. In fact, one of the most pathetic mindsets is blaming your kids for your inability to save and invest. That is just dreadfully pathetic.
I agree with you 100%, man. I see that on fitness too. A lot of the dads will say, well, it's because of my kids. I have 2 kids. And it's like, dude, you're really going to use them as your that should be your reason you want to get in shape, or your reason that you want to live a great life and save extra money and show them what that looks like. I mean, I even, sometimes I'm coaching men and they'll say, well, our kids are too busy. I don't have time to take my wife on a date. And I'm like, bro, then your kids are going to think it's normal when they get married someday. Do you want them to think that mom and dad just have kind of a roommate type thing? They don't go out and date each other still and do that. You gotta be that example. So I love that, man.
Absolutely. Your kids should be the reason you save and invest, not the excuse for why you don't.
Yes, I agree, man. And dude, it's so funny to me because I'll read a lot of your tweets sometimes and something will come off. I'm like, ooh, that's fire, and I'll go down to comment under it or something. And I'll read like this point. I'm like, how did the guy direct, like, you're telling somebody to just, if you can save 20% of your income, this is how we did it. Here's a blueprint. And some guy is just shouting 12 excuses and why you're dumb underneath. And I'm like, how do you get to that point? It always blows my mind, man.
Yep. Really every single time, especially when I write threads that do well, I'll have this list. And Twitter is smart enough to know the hate. And Twitter actually pushes their comments down. If you're listening to this podcast and you're a hater on Twitter, you know who you are. Chances are your tweets are also being pushed down. But I also like to read those tweets because, like I said before, it gives me motivation to continue. But yeah, man, I don't know. I really don't know. A lot of people just like to be upset. They like to hate. It gives them some weird, I guess, sense of maybe it's a high. Like the people who are always upset or always sad or always angry. That's like a high to them. I don't understand it, but in my humble opinion, happiness is a choice. Being angry is a choice. Being sad is a choice.
Kindness is a choice. Positivity is a choice. Happiness is a t-shirts. We'll link them below if you guys want to buy and support the mission. I'll get that plug in.
What an amazing segue, man. We should take this on the road.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I do think there's a segment of people who are just, and let's be honest, Steve, it's easier, right? It's easier for somebody to just say, well, it must be nice. Well, this or that. Well, he has this. He doesn't have the, it's easier to do that than put in the work.
Exactly.
I mean, that's basically what it all comes down to. And so I always think I feel sorry for a lot of those people, man. I always try and give them. I try and give them a little kindness back. Then if they don't give it back, I'm gonna block them. But it's you try to go the kindness route first.
Yeah, a lot of people just want to get you ruffled, get you riled up, right? Get you upset. And I never, under any circumstances, let that happen. Especially like if you don't respond, or if you respond with kindness, it makes them even more upset.
That's my favorite thing. I love to quote tweet one of their like just venomy responses and quote tweet it and be like, whatever's bothering you, bro, I just hope you go for a walk and end up having the greatest day ever today. They just never know how to respond to something like that.
Exactly.
Super fun.
Kill them with kindness, man.
That's right. All right. I think I know this one, man, because you've kind of already answered it. What's your favorite thing to do or to unwind, or maybe a hobby that you have that other people wouldn't know about? Sounds like lifting weights. Do you have anything else outside of that?
I like, and this is gonna this might get me canceled on money Twitter, but I like watching Netflix. And the reason is,
there's more than one path to victory. These people need to chill out.
Exactly. And it's not about not watching Netflix. You cancel your Netflix subscription and $1 million just magically appears in your bank account.
You gotta take a cold shower too, Steve.
Exactly. Cold showers. Yeah, exactly. I would not take a cold shower if my life, maybe if my life depended on it, I would take a cold shower. But like at the end of a day, I like to throw on something on Netflix. That's something I do every single day. It helps me unwind. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that if you've had a productive day and that's just how you release the stress or whatever. That's something that I do not, I don't hide. And I don't think that just magically canceling your Netflix subscription is just going to, automatically get you more successful.
Dude, I think it's amen and a fist pump to that. And there's too many people on Twitter that you have to do it this way. What people should do is see what you're doing, test out a lot of things in their own life, apply them. Maybe some work for them. Maybe they need to tweak it a little bit. You can't just watch a guru who tells you to meditate 4 hours a day and okay, I'm going to do that. Well, I don't have 4 hours a day, man. I really don't. I got 3 young kids. I don't. But you know what I can do? I meditate a minute or two every morning and I visualize my day. That works for me, right? For you, watching Netflix is great. For me, I have such an addictive personality, brother, that if I start watching Game of Thrones, I will do nothing else for 2 straight weeks, even though I've already seen the whole thing twice all the way through. I just can't. I know myself, so I have to abstain from that stuff, right? But it doesn't mean just because I don't, you can't. You got to find what works for you.
That's right. And I mean, to the meditation point, people think that you have to be sitting cross-legged with your hands like this. I mean, meditation, you go on a walk and you start to process, that's a form of meditation. Working out, that's a form of meditation. Driving in a car. I mean, people have different forms of meditation.
Right.
So those of you out there who said, oh, I would never meditate, that's not my thing. Chances are you probably do have a form of meditation and you just don't realize it.
I think that's huge, man. I love that. Well, dude, I could literally talk to you all day, brother. I know your time is valuable. I appreciate you coming on, man.
You got it.
I literally love everything you're about. Maybe tell the people some of your future plans. Again, guys, I'm going to link everything Steve does below. Join if you're not following him on Twitter, what are you even doing with your life? Hop on and follow this man on Twitter. We're going to link it below. His newsletter is amazing. We're going to link that one below too, and his Instagram. But tell the people, where to find you, where you're at, your future plans, my man.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could find me online, mainly on Twitter. Steve on Speed is the handle. I also have steveadcock.us, which is my blog. I post every once in a while there, but quite frankly, I enjoy Twitter more. So that's where I spend the majority of my time. I'm also over on Instagram at Millionaire Habits, where I just recycle a lot of my tweets over there. But if you're more of a visual person and that's where you hang out, definitely hit me up there. In terms of my future plans, man, I just want to continue building an audience, continue influencing people in a positive way, continue reaching out and giving back and just doing what I can. So the people out there who did not have an upbringing that I did still have a chance. Even if you're starting later in life, you still have a chance to build wealth, achieve financial freedom, and retire on your schedule.
Man, I absolutely love that, man. What a great way to kick off. I appreciate you so much, guys. This has been Steve, aka Millionaire Habits, coming on the podcast today. Episode, I think it's 59. You guys know I never know. Could be 60, could be 62, somewhere around there. But I appreciate you guys tuning in, man. Thank you so much. I always say, go bless up, go be kind to somebody else, be really kind to yourself today too. Take Steve's advice and maybe start to, educate yourselves on living life on your own terms too. And you guys go have the greatest day of your life. Thanks for tuning in.